This is The Drive with Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson on your 24/7 home of the black and gold. SNR, Steelers Nation Radio.
And welcome to The Drive. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and it is it's a little nicer today. It hasn't snowed yet today.
Right.
Sun's snowed out last night.
Yeah, it did. I think we're supposed to get a lot overnight, too, right?
Oh, goody.
Yeah.
Hopefully we are done with the show before that happens, because the drive home
Ride home was slow last.
Not fun.
Yeah.
Not fun, but it's the not fun kind of season unless your team is still in the postseason.
There's a few of them still.
Yeah. So, the NFL is down to its final 8. The Pittsburgh Steelers are not one of those teams, and so the discussions continue on how the Steelers can become one of those final 8 teams. And the top quarterback, veteran quarterback, who figures to be available on the open market this session, this cycle, is probably Sam Darnold.
I would think so, yeah.
Nick Shook went through 9 teams who could use Sam Darnold, or Sam Darnold could land here. I just wanted to talk about this because topping his list is the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I understand it.
I'm not on board with it, but I would understand it.
I wonder what his dollar figure is going to be, because I do think there'll be competing teams, which always drives it up. The last 2 games obviously
weren't pretty.
Weren't pretty.
Yeah.
They really weren't. But a lot of that was on the people around him. I mean, he has to. Pressure's always been his problem,
Right.
And I think that there are some teams that of these 9, that probably have considered him every step of the way, and maybe 1 or 2 of them have said, I don't know if we can protect him well enough. Is our system going to hold up well enough, particularly between the guards?
Yeah, that was one of the things that struck me in the playoff game Monday night, was that as soon as a guy would break free, and it didn't matter if he was 10 yards away from Darnold.
Yeah.
Darnold froze like he was a deer in headlights.
I know. And that's kind of 2 games in a row. But the other 15 were pretty good.
They were good.
Regard.
Oh, I get it.
I
get it. Now, obviously,
I don't think they discovered the issue.
You have discussions about this. I just don't know that what you're going to need to pay to get Sam Darnold, because it's going to be a multi-year deal. You're not getting him on a 1 or 2 or
definitely not.
Probably not even a 3-year deal.
Right. Now, did his price go down a little the last 2 weeks? Maybe a little, but not a ton.
So the question I would ask is Sam Darnold asking for the Baker Mayfield deal, 3 years, $100 million, with maybe
he'll get more than that.
Might be a slight raise from that.
I'm thinking he's like 35 to 40 a year.
I'm not in on that.
I'd entertain it. There's a lot of ability there. The other thing that's interesting to me, though, is the Vikings only lost to 2 teams.
Right.
They lost to Detroit, who's further along on them in the cycle in the division, and they lost to McVay. And I forget who was saying it. O'Connell learned from McVay. I mean, it couldn't be a worse matchup. And the old saying, something like, I taught you everything you know, but I didn't teach you everything I know. And I think that there was some of that, because they didn't have protection issue. They didn't have protection answers, and Darnold didn't play well, obviously. But the rest of the year was pretty darn good, and there's a lot of ability there.
There's ability there, and I liked him in the draft, but he has seen ghosts.
Oh, yeah.
He has, it's not been pretty. The interesting
it's
thing
far
here,
from perfect.
So
I mean, he's still a work in progress at his age.
The second team on Shook's list is the Jets.
There's no way he's going back there. Right, I know. Right. I don't know if he'd go back to New York in general.
No.
Yeah, right.
He's lived through that.
Both teams are right, yeah.
Yeah, why would he do that? The third team is the Giants. Same thing.
I mean, it all makes sense, except for he's been in that town already.
Yeah.
Right.
He's been under that microscope. The Saints.
I don't think they're – I think Carr can be had and is likely going to be elsewhere.
Yeah.
But I think they're just like –
it's time
get the
to
cap to yeah.
It's time to hit the plunger here.
I mean, like the way Cameron Jordan talked about in his exiting was, we're not going to be old anymore on defense. I might be playing elsewhere type of thing. I think it's time to do that for them.
Yeah. The Raiders.
That I could understand.
Yeah.
That I could absolutely understand. I wouldn't be high on my list if I'm Darnold.
No.
I'd much rather play for the Steelers.
Yeah. But money's money.
Yeah, yeah.
The Browns.
Maybe, but that sure seems like the second pick or Cousins to me.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree.
Yeah, I just don't think that's where the direction they go.
The Colts.
I think Richardson gets another year.
I think so.
I mean,
I don't agree with it.
It's been bad, but like the day you drafted him, you knew he was raw. I mean,
well, the problem was he kept getting hurt last year.
The durability thing's a problem.
And then he got hurt. You know, some of the stuff that
goes back to college too.
Yeah,
yeah,
like just not finishing games and you know, like he tapped out of a game.
I know.
You're the quarterback. You don't get to tap out.
I mean, I'm sure he'll have competition.
Call a running play.
Yeah. I'm sure he'll have competition. I just don't think he'll have someone just blow him out of the water. You know, $40 million signing. You're not the answer anymore.
Yeah. So I mean, it's
was that all 9?
That's it.
Oh, okay.
It's not a long list.
No, if the Steelers like him, they could get him
potentially.
I mean,
yeah.
Basically, what it comes down to, like he would pick that. If I'm him, I would pick. If all 9 of those teams called, first one I'm calling back is the Steelers.
Yeah. I just don't. I mean, again, I like the player coming out. He was my top ranked quarterback in that draft class.
Yeah.
And there were definite flashes this year. It's not like he had a bad season, but he had a bad final 2 weeks that.
And even during the season, to be fair,
it wasn't always great.
Oh, he got away with some throws that he shouldn't have. And I mean, there was some luck involved too. You know, I mean, I think he's got a reasonably high turnover-worthy throw rate still. Yeah. And he came in the league remarkably young, though. I think he's only 26 or 27.
He's 27 now.
27 now? Okay. Yeah. And he's been with a lot of teams already. I wonder. I mean, it would have to be at least a 2-year deal, probably a 3. And I'm thinking it's probably $110 million for 3, $120, something like that.
Yeah.
It's a going rate.
It is, but, you know.
Of the options, that's the one I think has the most upside. But you better have a plan in place.
Yeah, was last year as good as it's going to be, though? It's, you know, is
maybe. I mean, it's a risky move.
If you look at the Steeler quarterbacks this year, you got 21 touchdown passes and 6 interceptions and 3,200 yards passing out of the 2 quarterbacks. Darnold this season had 35 touchdowns, but threw 12 interceptions. And the other key stat here,
he has Justin Jefferson too.
Yeah, he had Justin Jefferson. He had maybe the best wide receiver in the game.
And he's a throw up and get. I mean, when in doubt, he just chucked it that direction.
Yeah,
right.
Steeler quarterbacks were sacked 49 times.
Mm-hmm.
Darnold was sacked 48.
Was he? A lot of them in the last 2 weeks.
Doesn't even count the playoff game.
The postseason, right? Which was
they got him 9 times in the playoffs.
Yeah, and sacks is a quarterback stat, and it's not great. I'm sure it got worse after Darisaw went out.
He also had 8 fumbles.
Yeah, there's volatility there, less than there was early in his career, but there is.
Yeah, I mean, I would understand it.
I would understand it too.
I don't know that I would love it.
I mean, just the age, where he's at in his development, his natural talent, things he's put on tape. But you better have a real strong plan in place of you don't just throw him in what these guys are doing and hope it works. I mean, you're going to have to tweak some stuff.
He's also not necessarily the kind of quarterback that Mike Tomlin has talked about acquiring. He's more
because of the turnover stuff.
Well, he's more of a pocket passer.
Yeah.
I mean, he has some mobility, but he's not a high-end athlete at the position.
I wonder how many yards he even ran for this year. Probably well under 200.
It was 212.
Really? Okay.
On 67 carries. So averaged 3.2 yards per carry. Mm-hmm. His best season was his final year with the Jets when he had 217 on 37 attempts. Mm-hmm.
Like you think he ran a 4.740, and I mean, he's a good athlete. He's a good athlete.
He's a good athlete. He's not a plus athlete.
He's not a great runner or design running plays. That type of thing. Now, I thought you meant more from a turnover mistake standpoint, not being a
that
guy.
too.
I mean, that's definitely true.
12 interceptions and 8 fumbles this year is like.
I guess that's kind of what it comes down to is if you're going to consider him or even like call his agent up. You have to think that the additional good
outweighs the
outweighs
bad.
the additional
It's the Baker
bad.
Mayfield argument.
Exactly. I
You know,
mean,
when
he's not
people
gonna
say
be a 6 interception guy.
When people say, "Hey, you can just go out and get Baker Mayfield," and Jameis Winston, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be willing.
Of course,
you got to be willing to live with the mistakes.
Yeah,
because there's got to be more of them.
There'll be more highlight plays.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the thing is, will there be more highlight plays? Will there be more stuff that most quarterbacks can't do compared to the additional 4 fumbles and 4 picks?
Because
that's what you got to figure out.
That's not been what Mike Tomlin wants to deal with. You know, you could live with Ben Roethlisberger throwing,
of course,
12 interceptions a year because he made 36 great throws during the course of the season that nobody else could do.
Right. Now, is it time to change what you're looking for at the quarterback position and say, I can't have Rod Carew a singles hitter anymore. I can't survive in the league that way. You know, I need to.
And I would understand that.
And I would understand it, right?
Yeah.
Considering the guys in the division and the teams you plan on playing in the playoffs going forward. And he's never going to be Josh Allen.
Right.
You know, but
that's the question.
Give you the better
that's what
shot.
Every question comes down to in regard to the quarterback position.
Yeah.
Does this guy help me beat those guys?
I know. And 9 out of 10, the answer is no. But that doesn't mean you don't try.
Right. Somebody has to line up at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2025.
So had a really good discussion on our podcast today along this line, talking mostly Rams and Niners. So the Rams get to the Super Bowl with Goff.
Right.
And he was first overall pick, but he's not a special athlete or anything like that. And McVay comes to the conclusion, he's not enough of a superhero for me. I'm going to go get Stafford, who's clearly an upgrade, and both teams benefited from it, and it worked. The Niners, in the same offseason, look at it like, I think it was the next offseason, Jimmy can get us to the dance, and then we're going to lose to Mahomes. You know what I mean? So they screwed it up, but I don't think the Niners' process was wrong going to try to get Trey Lance. They just
picked the wrong horse.
Picked the wrong horse.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and then for good or bad, and this all stemmed from like the Purdy conversation. They lucked into Purdy, but if you buy him, this is kind of what we were talking about. Like if you don't have one of those superstars, I think you're almost impossible to win multiple Super Bowls. You might get one.
You might get lucky. You might catch lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, you know, especially in the NFC where you only have to beat Mahomes, not Lamar, then Allen, then Mahomes. You know what I mean? And if you can find the next one on that tier, maybe that's Drake May, maybe it's Jaden Daniels, maybe it's Caleb.
Yeah.
All those guys' book isn't written yet. Okay, great. But you're probably not. And I don't know. I mean, like the Trey Lance move looks terrible, but the idea is right.
Right.
You know?
No, I hear you.
Yeah. And I'm not implying Darnold either, you know?
I mean, we may be looking at this 10 years from now and saying, yeah, Justin Herbert's a good quarterback,
yeah,
but he can't beat those guys.
Right.
Just might be the reality of it.
Right. But like Stafford was that guy.
Yeah.
You know, boy, he's really good, but he can't beat the big dogs. Well, until he got with McVay. You know?
Well, until you get
some of these guys are pretty young.
Until you get the pieces around you.
Right.
And that's the thing that, to me, you have to just keep building and building and building. Jalen Hurts is not the most talented quarterback.
No.
In fact, if you were picking quarterbacks you wanted to build your team around of the remaining 8 teams,
I think he's last.
He might be last.
Yeah. I mean,
but they built a roster around him.
Yeah. Right.
And I don't care how you build the roster around that guy. That's what the Steelers thought that they were doing this year.
Yeah.
They thought that they were getting, and they've gotten closer to having that kind of roster.
Right.
You've built, okay, you're rebuilding your offensive line. You've pumped up, you've added to your defense, but you still need more weapons.
Right. You don't have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Goddard.
And until the Eagles went out and did that.
They made the aggressive move.
They made the aggressive move and got the wide receiver. Mm-hmm. Now you can win with the 12th best quarterback in the league.
And make another aggressive move for Barkley.
Yeah.
Like I think it's not even an argument. Quarterback aside, that's the best roster in the league.
Yeah.
It's hard to build, but that's kind of what you have to do.
It's what you got to do
to be competitive. I mean, to at least have a chance.
I'm watching Hard Knocks last night, and I'm thinking, the Ravens, again, without Derrick Henry, are a much more beatable team.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the difference in that game. You can talk about, again, it goes back to my argument about why Lamar Jackson isn't the MVP. It's nothing against Lamar. I think Lamar's a fantastic football player. But Derrick Henry opens up so much more for him because he is a Hall of Fame special football player.
Yes. And what's interesting about their dynamic is they're such different styles of runners, but even more so,
they complement each other well.
Extremely.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I was going with it is maybe Henry's not the best back in the league. Maybe Lamar's not the best quarterback in the league, but they're each the most unique.
Yeah.
They're the hardest ones to play against.
And when you put them together,
it even compounds things for sure. I mean, it's a perfect formula. It's peanut butter and jelly, it's perfect. All right.
I mean, look at the point, folks. If you're still ticked off about the Steelers losing to the Ravens, understand that Baltimore is a favorite this week in Buffalo.
Yeah.
In Buffalo
against a great team.
It's the first time in the Bills' history they've had a home playoff game and they're underdogs.
Yeah, it's a really good football team.
Yeah.
And it's also a bad matchup for the Bills.
It's a bad matchup. They're a bad matchup for a lot of teams.
For a bad team. Yeah, a lot of teams, 100%. So we were talking about this earlier, too. Like, whoever loses, are they going to, Lamar or Allen, is all of a sudden it's not going to be, boy, that was an MVP-like season. It's going to be, you stink, you're a loser.
Yeah.
You lost to the other MVP.
Right.
Like, they could conceivably be co-MVPs. And one of them's going to walk out way with like, man, that was a crappy season. It's not a crappy season.
No.
It's an amazing season.
You made the final
season.
8.
It's a final 8, and you lost to the other superhero.
The problem is you keep banging your head. It's much the same question or problem that people are having with the Steelers right now. You keep banging your head on the ceiling, and you need to bust through that ceiling. But to me, I mean, if you're going to bust through the ceiling with the kind of quarterbacks that are going to be available this offseason, even if you went out and signed Sam Darnold.
Right, and he hits, and he's good.
You still need to add at the receiver position. You still need offensive weapons.
Right.
That's, to me, why I wouldn't make that move.
Right. There's only so many dollars to spend.
Right. I mean, I'm going to save my resources, and maybe I play this like the Chiefs did and make a big move to go up and get the next Pat Mahomes or who I think might be that guy. Yeah. But I don't want to marry myself to a middling quarterback, the 12th best quarterback, and now I've kind of narrowed my road down and said, okay, this is how we're going to have to do this. We're going to have to do this like the Eagles did and build the best damn roster in the league.
Yeah.
And you can miss. You can swing and miss.
It certainly would be nice to do that route where
I still want to do that. I still want to build the best roster in the league.
Sure.
But I don't want to limit myself with the quarterback position.
It'd be great to be, that's the guy I want in the draft. I don't have to move all the way to 1 to get him. But if you do, and it costs you a fortune, and you love him, great. It'd be great to draft the guy.
Yeah.
Put yourself in position to draft the guy, or at least be in the conversation to move up to get that guy, like the Chiefs did.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's crazy is, like, first off, all this makes Mahomes look even better. I mean, if he wins it again this year, it's like, oh my gosh, he doesn't have to go through as many of them.
Right.
He has this round where he can relax, but they earned the first overall or the bye. But the two things that stand out to me is the year they traded Tyreek Hill was, all right, we're going to get our books in order. We're taking a step back. They won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The year they traded Stephon Diggs, and a lot of us thought the Bills are going to be good, but they're not even clearly the best team in the AFC East on opening day. They might win it all.
They're number 2
They're
seed.
better now than ever.
They're the 2 seed.
Quarterback just keeps getting better.
Because what they did is instead of just saying, okay, it's just Stephon Diggs, and we're not going to have Josh throw the ball anywhere else.
Right.
They diversified the passing game.
Yep, and he got better as a player too. The turnover stuff's way down this year from Allen. Him and Mahomes all these guys keep getting better every year.
So to me, that's what this offseason should be about for the Steelers, is continuing to diversify the passing attack. I don't care who the quarterback is in 2025, because he's probably not your long-term guy one way or the other.
He certainly isn't as good as Lamar and Burrow in the division.
He's not going to be that. And as much as I like Justin Fields, he's probably never going to be that. I don't care if he's 25 or 26.
Right.
I don't know that Sam Darnold's not going to be that.
I don't think he'll be that. I don't know that it's not the right move or not. I see both sides on Darnold. I'm not standing on the table saying, "Oh, they better go sign him," but I would understand it, like you said.
Oh, I would understand it, but
understand
I don't know that I could completely get on board with it because
I'd have to see how the other piece of the puzzle fell.
Yeah, is he? Where does he come down in the quarterback hierarchy? Is he top 5? No. Is he top 10?
Not now.
No.
I could write a story where he's 10th or 9th.
But I'm going to have to build.
Now.
I'm going to have to build around him, and can I do that if I give him $35-40 million over a long term?
Yeah, you have to draft well.
Yeah,
I mean, you'll definitely have to draft well, right?
Yeah.
Because Cam Hayward's not going to be there in 3 years, or I mean, you're right.
You got to start restocking the cupboard and continue to restock the cupboard. I think they've done that in the last 2 drafts.
It looks that way.
I think they've gotten some real pieces here that you can build around. Even going back farther than that, but you got to continue to build.
And it's just so rare in this era. And the last team I can remember is coincidentally it's Peyton Manning's team, but he wasn't Peyton Manning when he was with Denver. I mean, he was Peyton Manning from the neck up, but to win, just run the ball in defense.
Yeah,
like
it's really tough to do.
It's really tough to do. I think it could be done, and maybe the next 10 Super Bowl winners, one of those teams is that type that doesn't have at least a Pro Bowl quarterback.
But I think that's what the Steelers were hoping to get in Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Like we just want what you got from the neck up.
Mm-hmm.
And for a large portion of the year, that worked.
It didn't that part didn't fail. Right. Now, you can't average 3.9 yards to carry, and you have to have the best defense in the
league.
And
you need to have a second offensive weapon.
Right,
it can't
right.
be just one guy.
Right.
It makes you too easy to defend.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no doubt.
Yeah. Anyways, let's get to a break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. When we come back, we'll be joined by the Dean of Doom, Bob Labriola, right after this. And welcome back to The Drive. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And now on the Justin Miller hotline, we welcome in the Dean of Doom, the Lord of Living in His Fears, the King of the Offseason, Bob Labriola. How you doing, Bob?
Happy start of the offseason, fellas.
You've got more titles than anybody else on this show. You know that.
They just keep coming, apparently.
You know what those titles are worth, right?
Our undying gratitude, Bob. That's what they're worth.
Oh.
So, Labs, looking at this season as a whole, I know everybody wants to focus on the end, and I get it. That's the recency bias that we all look at. Did you see any tangible evidence this season of any growth from this particular roster?
I got to be honest. It's hard for me to pinpoint anything. I mean, because how you finish is huge in this league. It just is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that there were mitigating factors. The whole schedule thing. I think we've talked about this already. I mean, this was a Hard Knocks creation. This backloaded schedule. All of this. Again, loading up the not only the division games but a lot of the difficult games. It was a TV show, and it's hard for me not to be ragingly cynical when this is the kind of thing that drives the car, because that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I've always hated Hard Knocks. I think it is an intrusive, unnecessary peek behind the curtain. It's kind of tabloid in my opinion. It's prurient in a lot of ways. Again, who knows? Because if you take the Steelers season, and if they open with 5 losses or 4 losses and finish 10-7, the feeling that we have about it right now is totally different.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. the season is over. It was disappointing. I think it's fair to call the playoff game embarrassing. And now it's, what's next? I don't feel qualified to judge the entire roster and point to signs of where I think there might have been growth. I'm all due respect, to you guys. This is your show. I think it's meaningless because it's seeking comfort or looking for silver linings or, any of that kind of stuff. And to me, it's the same thing as nitpicking negatives from the season. I don't think that there's any question that there were things that we found out during the season that need to be addressed, starting now and then running through to when the three of us meet at Sharky's that first night the training camp opens after the run test or the conditioning test, whatever it's called these days.
I could go for that right about now, Labs.
we might. I'll tell you what, based on what I've heard about what has been happening in the Laurel Highlands and what they're expecting maybe tonight into tomorrow, you might need a snowmobile to get there.
I'm thinking about a warm summer day in late July, though.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. But I don't know. And if you even if let's just pretend you want to say, well, there was some growth at quarterback. And I'm just picking something out. I don't even necessarily believe what I'm saying, but I'm just using this as an example. The three guys you have there are all pending unrestricted free agents. So, I mean, it really has no meaning beyond the final gun of the playoff game against the Ravens, because it could be totally different in a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever it might be. So, I don't know. You got anything else to ask?
You mentioned the Ravens. I just want to throw this out there, too. I mean, I was just really unimpressed with the Steelers, but I'm also really impressed with the Ravens. Do you think they're a Super Bowl caliber team? I'm not saying that's your prediction, but do you think that they're at that level?
Well, I mean, let me say this. The way I'm looking at the Ravens right now is the way I was looking at Penn State in the college football playoffs. Everything about the entire process for me moving forward is that the Ravens don't win the Super Bowl. I don't really care who else does. I'm not going to lavish any praise on that team, that franchise, ever, never. It'll never happen. So I'm a big Buffalo Bills fan.
Gotcha.
I'll even hold my nose and root for Jake from State Farm the week after that. I will, sing whatever the Lions fight song is. I don't care. Fly, Eagles, fly, whatever it is. Because, I don't know that labeling, a team necessarily Super Bowl caliber is another one of those things to me that I don't know that has any meaning. They're going to play the games. You got to beat who you have to play. You get to play them at home or on the road based on how you did during the regular season. All of that is cut and dry. It's laid out. There's a procedure. You earn it or you don't based on what you've done on the field. And, my preference is that it not be the Ravens. Yes, I could see them. There is, you talk about, Lord of living in his fears. Well, that's me when it comes to, yeah, sure, I can see a path from Baltimore to, winning the Super Bowl. But like I said, it could happen, but I'm not. I'm going to give you my Denny Green. Crown him if you want to. I'm not interested in that.
So, Bob, you mentioned the quarterback situation and how they don't have anybody under contract for next year. That's going to be the biggest thing that this team needs to tackle moving forward, and everything else revolves around that, does it not? It's the most important position on the field.
Yes. And, I do believe that you need somebody there. There was a time in the 80s where you could look at teams that won the Super Bowl and maybe convince yourself that there was a path to a Lombardi trophy with, a guy like Mark Rippon.
Yeah. Phil Simms is winning Super Bowls and,
Yeah. But I don't think that's the case anymore. I mean, the way they legislate the game now and officiate it, you have to have a big-time offense. They protect the quarterbacks because that, draws eyeballs, and eyeballs means ratings, and ratings mean revenue. So, and if you look at, the other quarterbacks in the AFC, or the ones that are there now, they're franchise caliber quarterbacks, and that's, to me, is such a overused term, because a lot of it's like, he's a Hall of Fame player. You can say that about anybody, and I think that has become a watered down kind of platitude. And I think franchise quarterback is a watered down label, because I don't know that a lot of the people, a lot of the players who are labeled franchise quarterbacks actually are.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're dealing with Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and
Burrow,
Patrick Mahomes,
yeah.
Burrow, and he's not in the playoffs.
No, but
I mean, Herbert
got to deal with him going forward.
Yeah, C.J. Stroud is in the playoffs. I mean, those are guys who are, in my mind, close to, if not already have attained worthiness to be called franchise quarterbacks. The Steelers don't have that, and what we learned, those of us, old enough to remember, there was a great desert.
I brought that up yesterday
in the 80s.
Terry Bradshaw's retirement and the drafting of Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, you ran a lot of Scotty Campbells and that type out there.
Mm-hmm.
Neil O'Donnell.
Right.
I mean, you had in my opinion, that defense in the mid to late 90s was spectacular. And you use that defense to get yourself to a Super Bowl in 1995, and you lost that game because the quarterback play gave it to the opponent. Neil threw the picks, and you lost. So I don't think that there is a path to that kind of championship anymore without, a big-time quarterback. So how do you get one? It's easier said than done. And Bill Cowher sure gets a lot of credit for the guy that he didn't want to draft. I'll tell you that. But it, works out. And, the Steelers won 2 Super Bowls within a 4-year span because of Ben Roethlisberger.
And went to another. In a 6-year span.
Another, right.
So
yes.
For our listeners who aren't familiar with that whole process, and you helped write the book literally on it, run us through the whole Ben Roethlisberger drafting situation, or at least an abridged verversion.
Cliff notes will be fine.
I mean, that going into that year, Bill Cowher was a big Phillip Rivers guy. I don't know, it's easy to say, well, Phillip Rivers played at NC State, and that was where Bill Cowher played his college football, and that's why he liked him. But I mean, I don't want to, cheapen it that way. I mean, Phillip Rivers was a
good
real
player.
He was
very good player.
A big time prospect. Going into that draft, Ben was seen as a guy who, there were the 3 top quarterbacks: Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger. Whatever order you liked them going into that draft, and teams liked them different ways, different orders. But Ben was not. He might have been seen as the most raw at the time going in, but there was no questioning his dynamic talent. Kevin Colbert was on him early. The MAC was a conference that the Steelers, got players from.
Right.
And Kevin Colbert knew about Eastern Michigan, which was in the MAC, Charlie Batch. So when he was at Detroit. So, I mean, there was no Ben Roethlisberger was not a surprise. Okay, so the draft comes around. Phillip Rivers gets picked, and Eli Manning was picked as well. Bill Cowher wanted Shawn Andrews, and he was an offensive lineman from Arkansas, I believe.
Yeah. Yep. And turned
played
into a good
tackle and
player.
He was. I remember him coming out. He's a good prospect. I mean,
Yeah.
first rounder all day long. You know.
Yeah, he was a guard. Seriously. Okay, Matt. Let's you picking a guard that high?
Oh, I hear you. I'm not saying they should have picked Shawn Andrews.
I'm just saying he wasn't a bad
like,
player.
Right? Yeah.
No, right, but he wasn't.
But he wasn't a quarterback.
But he wasn't an 11th overall pick either.
Yeah.
I mean, 11th overall, you're not picking. If you want to pick an offensive lineman, he better be a good pass blocking tackle that high. You don't pick centers there. You don't pick guards there. That's my opinion. If you're picking a defensive player there, you better be able to either put the quarterback on the ground or create takeaways, either with interceptions or something like that. So anyway, so it comes around to the Steelers' turn, and Bill Cowher is ready to turn in the card or have the card turned in, however you want to. And Dan Rooney was in the room, and he just said, slow down here, because on the board there was Ben higher than everybody else, because the Steelers draft board at the end lists all of the prospects 1 to however many there are. Let's just say 250. I'm just picking a number out of the sky.
Right.
1 through 250. Okay, and then as they're picked, you take them off the board. So you're looking at the board, and there was this magnet or nameplate or whatever they were using at the time. Ben Roethlisberger, Miami of Ohio. It was higher than anything else. And but Dan Rooney says, "Well, we got time. Let's talk about this." So then he starts getting people to weigh in on Roethlisberger. What do you think about him? What do you like about him? It started the discussion. Then some momentum built, and it wasn't an order from the owner, but he was Dan Rooney's life. He's in the Hall of Fame for this. He is a consensus builder. He built a consensus, and the Steelers picked Roethlisberger. I heard the story kind of what went on in that room before the end of that day. And then when I helped the ambassador with his memoir, Dan Rooney, my 75 years with the Steelers in the National Football League, he told that story to me. And I believe Dan Rooney. I don't think he would lie. He doesn't need to lie. He was never that kind of person. And so, while there have been some initiatives, let me use that word, to rewrite history, I'm not buying it. I believe what he told me. It wasn't a "I'm your boss, pick this guy" thing. But once he got the conversation going, and maybe some people spoke up who might not have been so forthcoming had not the owner asked them a direct question: "What do you think of this guy?" So, the Steelers ended up with what I believe is a first ballot Hall of Famer, and as we've already talked about in this segment, 2 more Lombardi trophies and another and a chance at a third. And here's another little piece of bias on my part. Without the player safety initiative, they would have won that third trophy, because Jordy Nelson would have been taken off the field down there in Jerry Jones' world on a stretcher, because those deep seam routes, anybody who saw the 2008 AFC Championship game and how the Steelers defended those kind of passes before they were declared illegal, or the way they defended those kinds of passes until that was declared illegal, It was physical and it was violent, and that was at the time that was legal. And so, but anyway, that's water under the bridge. But that's the way that I will always believe Ben Roethlisberger ended up with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, and so you have to figure out a way to make that happen again. And it's happened twice in franchise history where you've gone out and gotten that guy once number 1 overall, and the second time at 11 through some good fortune.
This year will be at 21.
This year's going to be at 21 when they select Jalen Milroe from Alabama, Bob.
Boom, there you go.
Well, look, and let me just, just as before the Steelers played Kansas City for the Mike Tomlin show, I was taping it with him. I asked him about Patrick Mahomes and what he remembered about Mahomes the year he came out. And, Mike Tomlin explained that was still Ben. It was 2016, I think.
Right, 2017.
2017,
yeah.
But it was still pre-elbow
right
injury Ben. So, the Steelers were, you're not looking for a starting quarterback at that point. But Mike Tomlin said that draft, Kevin Colbert was all over Mahomes, constantly talking about how good he was, all the things he could do, make all those throws with all the different arm angles. He was a playmaker. His background, his father was a Major League Baseball player. Just loved him. Now, I don't know that there were a lot of people. I don't know if that was a consensus opinion on Mahomes coming out because the Chiefs did trade up to get him. There were a few guys.
Watson went ahead of him. Trubisky went ahead of him.
Watson went just after him.
They're just after him?
Yeah.
I think it was a third.
He was a second quarterback taken. Trubisky went second.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was the 10th overall pick in the draft.
10, okay.
So anyway, you can certainly accurately, scout people and, have a good idea of what they might be able to do for your team, whether then you have the wherewithal or the luck to be able to draft them or not. That might be the most critical element of it. But I also think that there is some value in getting those kinds of evaluations correct.
If he comes out 3 years later, maybe he's a Steeler, just timing.
Just the way the timing worked, yeah.
Right. But it's not, it didn't happen that way. Just like in 1985, Bill Nunn told me the story about he was all over Jerry Rice. And he had convinced Chuck Noll that this was the guy. And the Steelers were going to pick him if he was there in the first round. And the 49ers traded up and grabbed him right up from under their nose. And that was a time where, the Steelers Chuck Noll didn't believe in trading picks to move up to make a pick. He valued each pick individually very highly. So that just wasn't going to happen. But again, that's another example of a correct evaluation that not everybody else had it correct and maybe had things broken a little bit differently on draft day. Jerry Rice might have started his career with the Steelers.
Yeah.
And then they had picked Marino in 83. Franchise history is totally different.
Right. Just the way it goes. I mean, the draft is you can't necessarily count on getting what you need in the draft.
Or your favorite guys.
Your favorite guy.
Because
there's no guarantee because unless you have the number 1 overall pick or are willing to trade up to get it, there's just no guarantees there.
Right. It's a lot of luck is involved in picking. I mean, all of the preparation and all of the work that goes into it, and you do your board and do your due diligence and all that other stuff. But then the picking has to fall for you, or you have to have an opportunity to reap your labors, the fruits of your labors.
Yeah.
So there we are.
All right. Labs, we've taken up enough of your time here. I know it's the off season and you've got more doom and gloom to to get into here, but we will let you go. We'll
Snow
talk to
to
you again.
shovel.
And since snow to shovel, we'll talk to you again soon. That is Bob Labriola, editor of Steelers Digest and Steelers.com. Of course, Steelers historian. Go check out the Hall of Honor Museum. Bob was a big part of that. You can go check that out at Acrisure Stadium. But he is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. We'll be back with more right after this. And we're back. I'm Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And we kept Bob long there, so we
did.
Be a quick little in and out
the
here.
Roethlisberger story was awesome, though. Yeah.
I wanted to make sure everybody knew that part of the story. Like
that's how stuff happens. You know, obviously they talked it out the night before, but then the owner walks in and be like, "Why is that card higher than everybody else on the board?"
Why we have that guy higher and we're not going to take him as quarterback?
Just explain it to me. You know, I'm not saying you're wrong, but let me hear it. Yeah, right.
And that to me is kind of what sets some things apart. You know, when people talk about, well, you know, Bill Cowher, and I always say, you know, Cowher didn't win a Super Bowl until he had the quarterback. Mm-hmm. And people say, well, but, you know, he wanted the quarterback. I'm like, did he? Because that's not what I've heard.
No, I've heard that for 10 years. You know,
like he had to be kind of talked into taking the quarterback.
And we kind of laughed at Andrews, but he was a Cowher-type mashing offensive lineman that was highly regarded.
And
I could see why Cowher wanted him.
Here's, you know, Cowher came, and you know I'm a Marty Schottenheimer guy, Washington County guy, won a boatload of games in the NFL. Yeah. And he won a boatload of games in the NFL without a star quarterback.
Right.
Until he went out at the end of his career and got Joe Montana.
Mm-hmm. And then mash you and play defense.
And then
That's
made
the way Cowher was
makes
brought
the
up.
AFC Championship game a couple of times.
Yep.
Still came up short, and people hold that against him. But he had that, we're going to run the ball and play defense mentality, and that's where Cowher came from.
100%. I mean, that was his makeup too. You know,
yeah.
Right? And they had the defense, you know, right.
But Cowher would have, if Cowher had his druthers, they'd have had Sean Andrews, and Tommy Maddox would have been their quarterback for the next couple of years. Not that they couldn't have been a good football team.
Yeah.
But they're not winning a Super Bowl.
No, I mean, and then who the heck? I mean, back to the conversation. Maybe they draft Aaron Rodgers the next year. Then,
right?
I mean, like
it just changes the whole trajectory of everything.
Right, 100%.
You know, so it's all part of the luck and the good fortune and the things that happen in those draft rooms.
And Labs mentioned it, but it happens to every team. Like we have the highest grade of all 32 teams on Jerry Rice. Doesn't mean he ends up in your team team. You know.
The year Mahomes came out, they're drafting 30th.
Yeah, you're 100% right about your evaluation on the player. That doesn't mean he ends up on your team.
Could they have moved up from where they were at, as the Chiefs did, to move up from where they were at? Sure, but it would have cost a hell of a lot more.
Right, and you had a quarterback at the time, and that wasn't the right move,
yeah.
even if you love him. I mean, there's so many players you love on draft day.
Roethlisberger at that point was still 35 years old. Like you thought, okay, he's got 4 or 5 more years left. You know,
I mean, it happens in every draft room every year, and they're not always right, but there's a ton of players you adored that end up on other rosters. Of course, right. It's just the way it works.
You know, that's why a guy like Patrick Queen is now a Steeler. They loved him in the draft.
Yeah.
When he became available, they went and got him.
Yeah.
That's why they went and got Minkah Fitzpatrick. Minkah Fitzpatrick was they had a top 5 grade on him. Coming out.
And
when he became available, you go get him.
You go get him, right. As long as your opinion doesn't change because of the pro film or injuries or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But that's why all these guys. If you pull up any scouting report, Russell Wilson's, it starts with college,
right?
You know what they thought of him coming out.
Yeah. So, you know, you got to take the big swings at the quarterback position. I just don't know that that big swing is going to be available this year. Getting us back around to what we talked about in the first.
Yeah, and maybe there's a draft guy we end up loving or something like that.
Could be.
Maybe there's a draft guy they end up loving. We'll see.
Yeah. There's lots of time between now and then, but. We're going to get to a break. That's going to do it for hour number 1 of the drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back with hour number 2 right after this. And we are back. I'm Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and this is hour number 2 of the drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. And Matt, Dane Brugler.
Yeah, just put this out for The Athletic, right?
Put out his latest mock draft. Of course, Dane joins us every year at the NFL Scouting Combine. He's the guy who puts out the Beast,
right?
That we often refer to, that has
that in itself's worth an athletic
way too
right?
much. He has way too much time on his hands to put together that kind of information.
Well, that's all he does. I mean, he's as much time as anybody else, but I think that's where every minute of his day goes. It must be.
Yeah.
But he had a 2-round mock day, right?
Yeah. So let's go ahead and buzz through this thing, see who the Steelers are picking here. And who goes elsewhere at this point in the season? The Tennessee Titans at 1 take Cam Ward, quarterback out of Miami.
Yeah, right.
I think he's my number one quarterback.
Right now he is for me, yeah.
Quarterback.
Yeah.
At 2, he has Cleveland taking Abdul Carter, the edge rusher out of Penn State.
I don't know that Myles Garrett's going to be a Brown. I mean, they showed it on Hard Knocks the other night, and his ending press conference was, I want to play for a winner. And the tone was just like, this isn't a winner.
Yeah.
But anyway, Carter's really impressive.
He's good.
Yeah.
At 3, the Giants then take Travis Hunter out of Colorado.
Okay. I guess Sanders wouldn't go to either one of those teams, but I understand why. I don't think he's a great prospect.
At 4, Teddaria McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona, goes to the Patriots.
Be a good fit.
At 5, Jacksonville takes Will Johnson, the cornerback from Michigan.
Okay. They have a good corner. They could use another.
At 6, the Raiders take Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback from Colorado.
Understandable. I wonder how much Brady's going to have say in personnel and head coach and all that kind of stuff.
Here's the weird thing about it. Not to get off on this side here. So there was a report earlier this week that Brady is exerting a lot of control over some of the personnel decisions and things of that nature in Vegas and having a say in coaching, hirings, and things like that. More so than most minority owners.
Yeah, he's not doesn't own a huge piece of the team, right?
But I get it. The problem arises, though, is that Brady is calling games for the NFL.
I have a real problem with that.
That's to me that's an issue.
It's an issue. Like if he's calling the Lions game, I don't know who he's calling this week. You don't think he's talking to both those coordinators about?
Well, they have rules about that.
Okay.
That he's not allowed to be in the sit-down meetings. He can't go to practice, those kind of things.
I say he can't go to practice if like the Raiders are playing the Steelers in Week 11 and he takes the Steeler game in Week 10. He should not be at practice.
Right. I mean,
right.
You're part of the ownership here, and if you're making personnel decisions or helping make personnel decisions or hirings and firings for another organization, you should not be calling games.
I wonder if this will be his last year calling games, because right now it's a conflict of interest, and I have a problem
100%.
We should have brought this up weeks ago, but
100%.
Yep.
At 7, the Jets take Mason Graham, the defensive tackle out of Michigan.
Jets.
Yeah.
Put him next to Williams. Okay. Yeah.
At 8, Carolina takes Jalen Walker, the edge rusher out of Georgia.
Okay.
At 9, the Saints take Malachi Starks, the safety out of Georgia. Back-to-back Georgia players.
I had no problem with any of those.
Chicago at 10 takes Josh Simmons, the offensive tackle from Ohio State.
I guess you could bump a tackle in. Interior line's more of a problem for them, but their line.
Figure it out. You just take a good lineman.
Yeah, just take a best lineman.
And he's the first one.
And best tackle off the board, right.
San Francisco at 11 takes Armand Membu, the offensive lineman out of Missouri.
You said the Niners do that?
Yeah.
That adds up, too. That's the highest I've seen him go, though, and Dane knows the stuff.
I always run into problems with the offensive linemen because you never hear their names mentioned.
Yeah, they don't get mentioned a whole lot, right.
At 12, Dallas takes Luther Burden III, the wide receiver out of Missouri.
Put him opposite Lamb. That works for me.
Yeah. 13, the Dolphins take Will Campbell, the offensive lineman from LSU.
That's another one. Just give me a lineman.
Yeah. 14, the Colts take Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State.
That would complete their skill guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At 15, the Falcons take Shamar Stewart, the defensive lineman from Texas A&M.
They're going to be blocked with D linemen every time.
16, the Cardinals take Derek Harmon, defensive tackle out of Oregon.
I'm cool with that, too.
That'll be Mike Pursuita's favorite player in the draft because he's a former Michigan State guy.
Okay.
17, the Bengals take Mykel Williams, the edge rusher out of Georgia.
They need him.
18, the Seahawks take Kelvin Banks Jr., offensive lineman from Texas.
That's another one. Just give me an offensive lineman, and we'll figure out who my best 5 are.
19, Tampa Bay takes James Pierce, the edge rusher from Tennessee.
That almost has to be a defensive pick for them.
Yeah. 20, the Broncos take Ashton Genty, running back Boise State.
I love that fit.
Yeah.
I think it's a great spot for him. And
somebody asked me today on the message board if Ashton Genty is there at 21, do you consider him if you're the Steelers? I'm like, heck yeah.
Yeah, you consider him.
Consider
him, right.
I don't care about the position. He's a playmaker.
Would you like Bijan on the team?
Right. Yeah,
I would.
I would. Yes, I would. 21, the Steelers then take Emeka Egbuka. I can never pronounce that one either. Wide receiver from Ohio State.
That would be a real solid pick.
Yeah.
I mean, he profiles as like a high end too, and I mean that as a compliment.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't think he's got the highest ceiling in the world, but help you soon.
You step right in and play.
Yeah, very mature game. He's a good player.
22, the Chargers take Colston Loveland, tight end from Michigan.
Chargers? Yeah, he coached them at Michigan, too. Yeah,
I wouldn't be opposed to that either.
Yeah, I hear you.
He's a pass catcher. He makes you better.
I think the Chargers would love him.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously the Harbaugh-Michigan connection.
I don't care that you're paying Pat Freiermuth. You can play 2 tight ends. You played a lot of 2 tight ends this year.
Yeah, we just saw a team that did a lot of it.
Yeah. Green Bay at 23 takes Tyleik Williams, defensive tackle from Ohio State.
Yeah, I think that has to be defense again, too. Every year they draft defense in the first round.
24, the Vikings take Caleb Johnson, running back out of Iowa.
That adds up. I mean, how much Aaron Jones this time of year is always beat up.
He's 31.
Yeah, and I
It's
think
a
that's
one-year
pretty
deal
good
that he
pick.
signed.
Yeah. I'm shocked it's him over the NC guy.
I am too.
Yeah, but they're all pretty attractive players.
Yeah. Houston at 25 takes Tyler Booker, guard out of Alabama.
Okay.
The Rams at 26 takes Josh Connerly Jr., offensive tackle from Oregon. That's as high as I've seen
getting
him.
ahead of him.
Yeah.
Right, that's a little early. But Dane knows the stuff.
At 27, Washington takes Mike Green, the edge rusher out of Marshall.
He's going to be at the Senior Bowl, right?
Yeah.
I know he won't be a Steeler, but I'm excited to watch him against big competition.
Yeah.
He's been a dominant player.
28, the Ravens go for Donovan Jackson, offensive lineman out of Ohio State.
They could have more offensive line changes.
Yeah. There's a lot, and a lot of these guys are offensive tackles. They're all going to end up getting kicked into guard.
And say a lot of these aren't, we mentioned this yesterday, they're not alt or, pure tackle types.
At 29, the Bills take Siobhan Revell Jr., the cornerback from East Carolina.
Mm-hmm. They have one good corner, could use another.
Yeah. Had a torn ACL in September.
That's early enough. They should be okay. I don't know if he'll be working out the combine or anything, but.
The Eagles at 30 take JT Tuimoloau, the edge rusher out of Ohio State.
I don't know where their needs are, but when they don't have a whole lot of needs, they draft D-linemen.
Draft a big guy, right. 31, the Chiefs take Kenneth Grant, the defensive tackle out of Michigan.
Okay. I mean, middle of the defense type tough guy. A lot different than Chris Jones.
32, the Detroit Lions take Nick Scourton, the edge rusher from Texas A&M.
Wow. It's pretty late for nabbing him.
Yeah, he's a good player, too.
Yeah, he'd be helpful for them.
At 33, the Browns take Ariante Ursary, offensive tackle from Minnesota.
Their O-line's going to be a problem for a while now.
33, the Giants take Jalen Milroe, quarterback from Alabama.
I don't think he's going to last that long when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about this off the air and maybe even on the air. His profile just sets up for him to be an earlier pick than that, to say that.
35, the Titans take Jack Sawyer, edge rusher from Ohio State.
Okay.
Jacksonville takes Jonah Salavanea, guard from Arizona.
Big, massive pile mover.
37, the Raiders take Omarion Hampton, running back, North Carolina.
That would be a good start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
38.
So they end up with Sanders and a back.
Yeah.
Okay.
38, the Patriots take Cameron Williams, offensive tackle from Texas. 39, Wyatt Millum, the offensive lineman from West Virginia, goes to Chicago. He'll be at the Combine.
Back-to-back.
Or at the Senior Bowl, I should say.
Yeah. Back-to-back O-lineman for the Bears. That'd be attacking a problem.
At 40, the Saints take Matthew Golden, the wide receiver from Texas.
And he's obviously been on TV a lot lately, but he's a pretty impressive player.
Yeah. 41, the Bears take Landon Jackson, the edge rusher from Arkansas.
The Bears have 3 picks in the top 50-ish or so.
Thanks, Carolina. 42, I think they're still reaping the benefits of that, yeah. 42, the Jets take Nick Emerawari, the safety out of South Carolina.
Okay.
San Francisco takes Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle from Ole Miss.
They'd be happy with that.
Dallas then takes Travion Henderson, the running back from Ohio State. That's 4 running backs in the first 44.
Mm-hmm.
At 45, the Colts take Azire Thomas, cornerback from Florida State.
Okay.
46, Jahad Barron, cornerback from Texas, goes to the Falcons.
Yeah, I think we talked about him a little bit yesterday, too.
Yeah. 47, Princely Unamilan.
Is that the Ole Miss dude?
The Ole Miss guy that I can't pronounce his name.
He's had a tough couple days on the drive. Yeah.
There's lots of M's, 3 M's and 4 letters. Come on, man. At 48, the Dolphins take Harold Fannin Jr., tight end from Bowling Green.
He's a lot like Johnny Smith, really.
Yeah. 49, Cincinnati takes Marcus Mabal, the offensive tackle offensive lineman from Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
50, Seattle takes Deone Walker, defensive tackle from Kentucky.
Wow, big body guy that maybe would have been nice to follow the Steelers in a couple picks there.
At 51, the Broncos take Mason Taylor, tight end from LSU. 4 tight ends in the top 51.
Yeah, Jason Taylor's kid.
Yeah. And
he's a good tight end draft.
Yeah, the nephew of
Zach Thomas.
Yep. So you get some bloodlines there. 52, the Steelers take Maxwell Hairston, cornerback from Kentucky.
Adds up. Receiver corner would not shock me at all.
Yeah. 53, the Buccaneers take Carson Swessinger, linebacker from UCLA.
Mm-hmm. And unlike how we did the mock, Dane's not like, I think they'll sign a corner or wide receiver in free agency.
Right.
You know, right. There's no need. Everyone has a lot of needs right now.
54, Jordan Birch, edge rusher from Oregon, goes to Green Bay. 45, Josiah Stewart, edge rusher from Michigan, goes to the Chargers. At 55, Donovan Ezerikuo, the edge rusher from Boston College. I just completely butchered his name as well.
Sure, we'll get better at it.
Goes at 56 to the Bills. Carolina takes Alfred Collins, the defensive tackle from Texas. 58, Trey Harris, the wide receiver from Ole Miss, goes to Houston.
You do some more homework on him, but he'd be an interesting second rounder for the Steelers, too.
59, Baltimore takes Jihad Campbell, linebacker / edge rusher from Alabama.
Kind of an odd player, but productive and, an outlier.
60, the Commanders take Alec Ayemanor, wide receiver from Stanford.
Okay. Yeah, I think he's probably about in that neighborhood, too, for maybe Steelers second-round receiver,
61, the Bills take Xavier Watts, safety from Notre Dame.
Okay. People really like him.
The Eagles at 62 take Gray Zabel, offensive lineman from North Dakota State.
Lineman.
Yeah. 63, Kansas City takes Jaden Higgins, wide receiver from Iowa State. And at 64, the Detroit Lions take Benjamin Morrison, cornerback from Notre Dame.
He was mocked a lot earlier than that, but he's coming off a pretty serious injury. So
Yeah.
I don't know, see if he's available for the combine or a pro day workout or any of those type of things.
Yeah, Notre Dame, despite making the championship game, has had like 7 injuries on defense that have been massive.
Imagine if they had those guys, right?
Yeah.
But cool. I mean, I'm not saying I'd take it right now, but that's a solid 2 picks for the Steelers.
Wide receiver, cornerback. I could see wide receiver, defensive tackle / cornerback in those first 3 picks.
My hunch is they will have a corner or wide receiver under contract that's not currently with the team.
Yeah.
That's my hunch by the time that rolls around.
That's how I would approach it. I could also see if you went out and signed, say, Javon Hargrave or one of these other defensive linemen that are available, they're potentially available, that maybe you push defensive, maybe you're not taking a first or second round defensive lineman. Maybe that's a third round guy that plays the nose or something like that.
Or maybe it's a first round pick a year from now.
Yeah.
Something like that too. Yeah.
But it's such a deep draft in defensive line.
It would be nice to not ignore that spot. Yeah.
Because you can't continue to, and you give that guy, if you take him even if you take him in the first round. Cam Hayward didn't start right away.
Oh, sure.
Took him 3 years to become a starter because of the guys who were ahead of
look
him.
how Benton's gotten moved in.
Yeah.
He was a pretty high pick himself. These guys don't have to play now. Right,
but they'll be rotational players.
Oh, yeah. And they'll learn and all that stuff. It's so early, but I feel like they have to draft a running back because there's so many.
Yeah.
D-tackle would be next on the list of this pool's so deep. Be great to
You got to dive in.
Yeah.
You got to at least wet your toes.
Yeah. You might as well grab something from that group, on defensive line.
Yeah. So that's where we're at right now as we sit here on January 15th. This will change. Dane will do many more mocks after this.
Of course. And then free agency hits and screws them all up. Yeah.
Yeah. Free agency changes everything.
Mm-hmm. Big time.
Let's take another break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley, and this is The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. And, of course, you can hear The Drive every Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. right here on these very airwaves. You can also download the Steelers mobile app and get the Drive downloaded to your phone there, or you can watch on YouTube, where our friend Tyler Vittmeyer here makes sure that the video gets out there in a timely fashion every night, and you can watch that night. You can watch it the next day while you're at the office. Throw it on your iPod or iPod. How old am I? Throw it on your phone and listen to it.
On your iPad if you want.
You could do that. And there are plenty of different ways to watch that. But let's get to a break. He's Matt Williamson. I'm Dale Lolley. This is The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. And we are back. I'm Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And Matt, just to look here at this free agent quarterback market.
It's not pretty.
Yeah, this coming from Underdog Fantasy.
Yeah, they have a pretty good list out there. It's
Yeah.
free. You guys check it out. Yeah.
So you're looking at Darnold, who we talked about in the opening segment.
He's clearly number one.
Their number 2 guy is Russell Wilson.
Yeah. I mean, age is obviously a factor there, too. I mean, he won't be for everybody.
He won't be for everybody, but you also are not going to sign him to a long-term deal.
Right.
Like you might have to with Darnold.
100%.
Daniel Jones.
I mean, there's a pretty nice drop-off there. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Someone's going to think Daniel Jones is the next Darnold.
Whew.
It's not going to be this guy. I'll tell you that. I have not been impressed. I didn't like him coming out of Duke.
No.
Yeah, I don't see it. But I think he's going to end up as the McCarthy backup. I think it'll end up being.
They'll probably bring him. Yeah. Hey, you like? Yeah, we liked you. We like bringing you here.
He chose them.
Yeah.
You know, right. I think it'll be McCarthy and Jones in Minnesota. And Darnold, I think, will be out there.
Yeah. 4 is Mac Jones. 27 years old already.
Yeah, and he's a pocket passer.
He's a pocket passer in a league that doesn't value. Like, people talk about Russell Wilson like he can't move at all.
Right.
And
he moves fine. I mean,
he moves.
okay,
yeah. He is still at the age of 35, now 36, more athletic than half the quarterbacks that are playing.
He's more athletic than Mac Jones.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the problem with Jones.
Right.
Do you think he has like a Minshew-like career? Plays for like 6 teams?
Probably.
Yeah, and has enough in the bank. You
Yeah.
know, Fitzpatrick, one of those type of guys.
5 is Jameis Winston.
I still see the allure. Not to make him
12
a starter.
touchdowns.
Yeah.
But 12 interceptions in 7 starts.
Where does
7
he
starts,
end
he
up?
had
Yeah.
12 of both.
Yeah,
Like, that's just who he is. It's like playing Yahtzee.
Yeah, exactly.
Throw it out there. Oh, I got 3. Oh, man, that's a 2,
Yeah.
a 4.
I can't make it straight with that one. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. He'll be someone's 2 and come off the bench and ignite you for a game or 2 and then throw 6 picks. And, yeah, that's what he is.
He'll eat W's. And
Yeah, right,
be a
right.
great guy in the locker room,
People
and everybody
love
loves
him,
him. Yeah, I got nothing against Jameis Winston. I just don't know. As a coach, I can't imagine wanting to walk that line with that.
Walking on the razor's edge. Right?
It would just drive you
brutal,
nuts.
right.
Like, Jameis, you high-fiving him at 1 minute, and the next minute he's coming. What the hell were you doing there?
What was up with that one?
Yeah, that just made no sense.
Yeah, I wonder where he'll end up.
I don't know. Do you think he gets like one of the New York teams says, hey, maybe?
Could he be the guy that's with Milrow and somewhere else? You know, like he can't be the only answer.
No.
Would the Colts sign him?
If you're the team, if you're the Tennessee Titans,
Yeah.
let's just use them as an example, and you were picking number 1 overall, would it be the worst idea to bring in Jameis Winston as a guy who's lived in those shoes?
No.
To kind of mentor your young quarterback, a Cam Ward who's...
Well, let me ask you another question real quick on that, since you brought that team up. Do they trade Levis?
Yes.
I mean, we saw so much of that, like Ritter and Mac Jones. And like this past year, a lot of starters got out of the way for a rookie.
Yeah.
Because they used to be on the billboard. You know, like it's not a bad move
just
to get
clearing
rid
the
of
room out.
How? You know, you knew you were going to draft a dude. We don't need your remnants. Not that you're terrible, but we'll dump you for a 4th-round pick. And no, I'm not interested for the Steelers on Levis.
No.
But if Levis
He
is
won't
gone,
even be a 4th-round pick. It'll probably be a 6.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Pickett moved. A lot of the quarterbacks from those class, Willis moved. So if you move Levis, you sign Winston and you draft 1 first overall. That I understand.
Yeah. I just think Winston, as the former 1st overall pick, would
I've
have a
been
lot
there.
of value.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he's good in the room. He can ignite you. If Ward isn't ready, if that's your pick at 1-1.
He's been that guy. He's been the guy who's been the supposed savior of the franchise, and he could walk, if it's Cam Ward or if it's Shedeur Sanders, through that process.
And if they're not ready for the first month, well, Jameis.
Yeah.
It'll be a roller coaster, but you've been there, right?
Yeah.
I don't dislike it.
Yeah, that would make the most sense to me.
That's the best fit I've heard yet.
Yeah. Just as that been there, done that kind of guy. Number 6 is Justin Fields.
The other thought with him, like, what if you were a really good team? Like, make him Josh Allen's replacement or Mahomes. I'm like, clearly the 2.
But if you're a really good team,
the Lions. I mean, I don't want to invest that much dollars.
He can come in and win you a game, but he can also lose you a game that ends up costing you home field advantage.
Right. Like, would you rather have, like, Mason Rudolph if you're
Hendon,
those teams?
They also have Hendon Hooker. That's
Yeah, I'm just thinking about really good teams that, like, man, I lost Allen for a month. Can I win 3 out of 4 with Winston? Or would you rather have, like, Rudolph?
I'd rather have Rudolph.
I might rather have Rudolph. Just don't screw it up.
Yeah, give me a guy that's just going to go in there and run the offense and be okay.
It's obviously different if you lose Allen for the year. Well, then your season's shot.
Your season's shot anyways.
Right.
And, yeah. 6 is Justin Fields.
Maybe should be higher. I would rather have Daniel Jones or Justin Fields.
I'd rather have Justin Fields.
I would too, and I understand why they would put Jones higher. But if you ask me, they both cost $10 million a year. Who do you want? I'm taking Fields.
Yeah, part of their process with that. Well, he was traded for a 6th-round pick last year.
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay,
right.
but
the league did speak something there, right?
They wanted more than that to start, and then everybody else started trading quarterbacks like crazy, and the seats.
That's the thing is there was probably teams that were interested that would have given them more had it been a month earlier.
Right.
And, oh, by the way, Jones was cut. Nobody traded anything for
him. Yeah.
They didn't give him a 6th-round pick for him. Nobody took him.
Same thing. Mac Jones was traded for
peanuts, too.
Peanuts.
Late pick, right? 5th or 6th.
Jameis was available,
Yeah.
7.
Nobody's beaten down the door for any of these guys lately, right?
7 is Marcus Mariota.
Oh, I think he's really bad. Watching him when he really had a time to start with Arthur Smith's teams in Atlanta, he can't complete passes.
Yeah.
He had one good game while Daniels was hurt. I don't see it with him.
Yeah. 8 is Mason Rudolph.
He is what he is. I mean, he's a 2, and he'll be a 2 for a long time, and that's fine.
9 is Andy Dalton.
I bet he just goes back and, assuming him and Bryce Young have a good relationship, bring him back. How old's he?
37.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. 10, Jacoby Brissett.
I get it. I mean, I think he's a 2. He just doesn't move very well. He doesn't create very much. People love him.
I bet New England just brings him back.
Yeah, I would imagine. He spent a lot of time with the Patriots organization. I would bet Vrabel likes him. Makes sense. Good backup.
Started there, he can end there. He played with Vrabel, didn't he? He played. No, he wouldn't be old enough to play with Vrabel, but he's.
Yeah. But he's a solid 2.
Yeah.
Tough guy, you know.
Some of the cut candidates.
Yeah, these are kind of interesting part of this.
Aaron Rodgers. I don't think it's possible. They have possible, likely, all beside these guys. Aaron Rodgers is getting cut.
Yeah. I don't know what his cap stuff is, but I think that's kind of a foregone conclusion. Yeah.
And where he might just retire.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think he'll be available, whether he wants to play or not.
Yeah. Kirk Cousins.
I think he's getting cut.
Yeah, he's definitely getting released, and they came out last week and said, well, we could picture a world we could have Kirk Cousins as our number 2 quarterback.
They have to say that because
you have to say that because
maybe someone will give him a pick.
You're going to try to trade him.
Yeah, and then when nobody bites, they'll cut him.
The reality is he's not going to be an Atlanta Falcon next year.
I 100% believe that,
and I don't know,
but someone will get the Russell Wilson deal with him.
Yeah,
so I think he'll be in the league for league minimum.
But I would not be interested in that here.
I'm not either.
He doesn't move at all.
At all.
He wasn't the most mobile guy to begin with, and now he's even less mobile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would have a tough time with that, unless they think that he's over it.
Yeah. The difference
he was not.
The difference between Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson, even though Cousins is like 10 months older than him.
Yeah, same draft class.
Same draft class, and everybody wants to compare the two. Wilson looks like Lamar Jackson next to Kirk Cousins.
Just off of 2024 film, they're much different movement players right now. Yeah.
I mean, Cousins doesn't move at all.
No, he doesn't.
This would have been a move that the Indianapolis Colts would have made 5 years ago when they were cycling through all the
Matt Ryan and Rivers and yeah. Now I will say these two played each other on opening day and didn't know what to think of Cousins. And Cousins had just signed a big deal. I thought Cousins was the superior player coming off 2023 tape.
Sure, but
proved to be different.
He can't move.
No.
And he's still dealing with that Achilles injury that
You think someone will make him the clear opening day starter?
I could see the Browns doing that
because of the money.
Because of the money, and he's got there's some backstory there with the Vikings and that coaching staff, and
it's Speaking of quarterback news, Quinn Ewers declared.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
It doesn't excite me, but it's one more guy to add to the mix.
The other guy who is also a cut candidate is Gardner Minshew, and no thank you.
No, but he'll hook on somewhere and do the exact same thing that he always does.
Younger version of Jameis Winston.
Yeah,
really.
right. I think he's Ryan Fitzpatrick. He'll play for 100 teams.
Yeah,
and win 40% of his games and wear out his welcome, and someone else will pick him up. And right,
but he's got a funny mustache.
Yeah,
You know.
he's easy to root for. But they have O'Connell too, who will be back.
O'Connell is a better player than Gardner Minshew.
He's a better player. He's younger, and maybe he has more of a story to write.
Yeah.
He'll be their number 2 next year.
Yeah, he could be your bridge until whoever. If you end up taking Shedeur Sanders as
at least it gives you something.
Yeah.
No, he has value to the Raiders. O'Connell, I think.
Trade candidates.
I think there's 2.
Geno Smith, which they list as doubtful.
Yeah, I mean they'd have to have another plan.
Yeah, and it's not Sam Howell.
No.
Derek Carr.
And Carr, I think you could get.
Yeah.
Geno's an upgrade to me. I like Geno as a player. I think he's an underrated player.
Yeah, but he's also 34.
But I say he's old too.
Yeah.
And he's going to cost you a legit pick. You're not going to get him for a 6th rounder.
Right.
I mean, he's a starting quarterback.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure why Seattle would move on.
Yeah, they don't have a plan in place to.
It's just a new staff, and did there any reason to sour on them? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Do they have some other great hotshot quarterback that they're going to go get? I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Right.
So
I think Carr ends up with the Giants.
That would make sense. Yeah.
2nd round pick, 3rd round pick for Carr, or
I don't
something
even know
like
if it'd
that.
be that high.
Yeah, maybe probably not a 2nd.
I don't know what his contract status is.
I don't think it's awful.
Yeah, but it's not. He's not somebody you're going to go beating the door down to go get. I mean, it's just he doesn't excite me a whole bunch.
He's not as much a risk taker as you'd like. I mean, he has good games. He has nice passes here. I mean, he's talented. He's a good thrower. But
the base salary next year is $30 million.
Is it?
It's $40 million in 2026.
It's probably a 3rd or 4th round pick gets him.
Yeah, that money is.
I don't think you give up a 2.
Yeah, you're not giving up a 2 and paying Derek Carr
early 2, like
$30 million, and he's 34.
He's had injuries too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're getting you're not getting him at 30 like the Saints did.
No. And I think, was he a free agent? Yes.
Yeah.
He was a free
Signed a 4-year, $150 million deal with the Saints.
Mm-hmm.
How'd that work out?
There's a lot of those tiers. Yeah, I mean, that's the Tua question, the Purdy question. What do these guys cost and what are they worth?
And the final guy on the list at the quarterback position as a cut candidate is Will Levis.
I think he'll get traded.
Probably, but
yeah,
the tape is so bad.
So bad. But somebody will have just like Ritter and Pickett and all those guys.
I don't know.
I think he goes for a 5th somewhere.
His tape might be worse than all those guys.
Boy, Ritter's was bad.
Ritter's was bad.
But Levis, you talk about hero ball and turnover-worthy plays, is off the charts. He's Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
Without
the good.
With lower
Without
lower
any of the
highs,
good, yeah.
Much lower highs.
Yeah, I don't know that he showed
The
as
Browns
much.
don't beat Steelers with Levis.
No.
Yeah.
I don't know that anybody is going to look at him based off what he did in his first 2 seasons and say, yeah, that's going to be salvageable.
I know. And plus, a lot of teams want their number 2 just to be a consistent.
Come in and be a game manager for us.
Yeah.
And
how much time do I have to work on your crazy traits,
And their crazy traits.
But I don't think he'll be a Titan.
No, I don't think so either.
I think getting him out of the room makes sense. Even if he's not, I'm not saying he's a bad guy.
I just don't see anybody giving up a pick for him.
Can't imagine he gets
Unless
cut,
it's
though.
a 7. I mean,
something conditional.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
But
where's that fit?
Yeah, just he's not going to be like anybody else's starter necessarily. But you're going to look at that and go, yeah, he's a good backup plan.
One more name that you brought up yesterday that I keep kicking around in my head, though, is Trey Lance.
Yeah.
He's not on that list, but he could be in. If he was in Latrobe, I wouldn't cry about it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't cost you much to bring him in, Take a look at him, see what
There's
happens.
ability.
There's
just not
right.
a lot of tape on him.
Absolutely. If for some reason Wilson's not back and you have Fields and Lance and maybe even a draft pick, I would understand it.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not saying he's good or not, but it costs you nothing.
The one final thing I'll say about Levis is that did he look worse than I can't think of the name now. They traded him to the Packers.
Willis.
Willis. Did he look worse than Malik Willis as a Tennessee Titan? I mean, Willis looked bad.
He looked really bad.
And then he goes to Green Bay, and he doesn't look that bad.
I've had those thoughts with Levis, too. Like, what if he sat a year like Darnold did in San Francisco and learned, and he's apparently smart, and it was bad.
It was really bad.
It was really bad.
I mean, he threw as many pick sixes as he did touchdown passes.
Mm-hmm.
More.
But he's a big, strong athlete. You can't count on him.
Yeah.
But again, like, if he ended up in Latrobe and you gave up nothing for him, I'll watch him. Yeah, I mean, we'll see what I don't want him in games yet, but a year from now I might.
But that was the thing with Malik Willis. Like,
exactly.
When he played in Tennessee, they didn't even trust him to put the ball in the air.
He'd throw the ball like 11 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and start a game.
And then when he did drop back to pass, he got sacked.
Yeah, he get crushed, right. Absolutely. Like, totally in over his head. But he also came from Liberty.
Yeah.
You know, where...
That's why Lance would interest me, because they're again, the athletic traits are there. The tools are there.
Yeah.
You just haven't gotten to see it.
And no one's implying, folks, that we think they're like the next Ben.
No.
Just if he was in
it's
camp.
It's a bite of the apple.
Right. If he was in camp, I would be interested. Right.
It's really the same situation as trading for Justin Fields.
Exactly. Right.
Like, you have nothing to lose.
And it's a smart economic move.
Yeah.
Because it could hit that you get a great return on your investment. It might not. He's not going to be Josh Allen.
It's really what Tampa Bay and Minnesota did with Darnold and
Baker.
But
it's even a less investment.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys cost you. I think Darnold's making like 10.
I don't even think he's making that.
Really?
They sound like minimum deals.
Yeah. I don't know what Baker signed.
Baker's
for
making
originally.
money now.
Now he
but
is.
The first year in
right.
Tampa Bay, he wasn't making a ton of money.
He's probably making like what Winston makes now.
Yeah.
Or one of those type of guys. Yeah.
So
again, I mean, if they're in camp, you could even cut them.
Right.
I mean, Levis could come to camp, Lance could come to camp, and don't even make the team.
Right.
You know, we're not saying he's going to be the starter.
Or they look okay in training camp, and you're able to flip them because somebody else has a quarterback injury.
Yeah. Or he's your 3 and he's inactive.
It's worth a shot.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
those guys are, if they're free, basically. And one of the Steelers' 7th-round picks for Will Levis. Again, I think he's bad, but that doesn't mean he's always going to be bad.
Right. Yeah.
But I would get the logic. Take a lot of bites.
Absolutely. Let's get to a break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. We're going to get to the break here, and I'll be back with more on The Drive right after this. And welcome back. I'm Dale Lolley, and, Matt had the bolt here because he has other stuff going on, but I am going to take you through here the final segment of The Drive. We're going to continue to take a look here at that NFL free agent list here put together by Underdog Fantasy. We're going to look at the wide receivers because I think that's an interesting group at this point. And T. Higgins, obviously the top of the line there. $26 million franchise tag if Cincinnati wants to keep him. I can't imagine that they go that route. But they could. Or they could just put the $26 million tag on and make it the non-exclusive tag and let him go out and negotiate with other teams. And if somebody wants to top that, then they would get the first-round draft picks back. So there's a lot of different ways that Cincinnati could play that, but they also have to worry about paying other guys on that roster and, including the other wide receiver, which is not going to be cheap. So 2 is Chris Godwin. Coming off an injury, it had a broken ankle, so it's not like it was something that was a ligament damage or anything like that in Tampa Bay. He's not going to be back with the Buccaneers, I would not think. They had some young guys step up, so still just 28. That would make some sense here in Pittsburgh. Can play inside, can play outside. He's better inside, but you can make that work, and he would certainly be an upgrade for the Steelers and be a chain mover and still good enough to make plays down the field. Speaking of that, keep an eye on Marquise Brown this weekend with the Kansas City Chiefs. He was injured much of the season with that shoulder injury, but he's on a 1-year prove-it deal with the Chiefs. And you know what kind of receiver he is. He can fly, deep threat, but has kind of improved his game beyond that to become more than just a deep threat. Would be an interesting addition. Amari Cooper, 31 years old, 54% of the snaps in Buffalo this season after being traded from the Cleveland Browns. But he did average 2.0 yards per route run this season, so that's still elite-type stuff. Would he be an upgrade? Sure. And at 31, you're not looking probably at a long-term deal for an Amari Cooper, but maybe that would be more of a one-year type rental. Keenan Allen, now 33, strictly a slot guy. He's already talked about he either wants to return to Chicago or go back to the Chargers where he started his career. And if not, it could be retirement for him. DeAndre Hopkins, his best days are behind him, folks. He's 33 years old, was never a great separator to begin with. Great contested catch guy, but 1.56 yards per route run with the Kansas City Chiefs this year. I just mentioned that Amari Cooper averaged over 2 yards per route run, which is much better than what you got out of DeAndre Hopkins in Kansas City. Josh Palmer has averaged 47 yards per game with the Chargers the last 3 seasons. That's with Justin Herbert throwing him the football. I think he might be a little bit better than that, but he kind of is what he is. He's a kind of a low-end number 2 guy. He's been, was hurt toward the end of the season. I think that really hurt the Chargers' passing game when it comes to the production in the postseason. He missed the last game of the season and then the first game of the playoffs. Then you're looking at Stephon Diggs, 32, coming off an ACL surgery in November. Was off to a good start with Houston this year after being traded from Buffalo. Averaged 62 yards per game in those games that he played before the ACL surgery. But again, a 32-year-old coming off an ACL injury. I don't know that I'm super interested in that. I would understand it, but he's got to show you that he can still be that guy. Our old friend Deontay Johnson is number 9 on this list and was just released by his 4th team in the past year earlier this week as the Houston Texans, who had signed him prior to the playoffs, released him after just 2 games. And remember, folks, they're playing this weekend, and they released Deontay Johnson. So doesn't bode well for Deontay, and he's number 9 on this list. Maybe somebody thinks – what's that? The Ravens just brought him back? Wow. I did not see that, but thank you for Justin for that one. Didn't see that coming, but tells you maybe a little something about what they're thinking with Zay Flowers for the possibly this weekend against the Buffalo Bills. Number 10 there on this list is Elijah Moore, 25-year-old with the coming off the season with the Browns. Had some moments, mostly with Jameis Winston in there, but he averaged 5.3 yards per target last year. So it's a lot of quick hitting stuff at the line of scrimmage, 32 yards per game. I've always liked the player. Haven't understood why it hasn't worked out, but it hasn't worked out in a couple of stops now. And, maybe that's not a great potential possibility there. Some of the cut candidates, Devontae Adams, that is very likely to happen. He's making way too much money. Again, he'll be like Diggs, a 32-year-old guy, but unlike Diggs, played the entire season and is still a viable option as a pass catcher. Christian Kirk with the Jaguars. Of course, the Steelers were in talks to try to trade for him before the trade deadline. He is a cut possibility because all 7 of the Jacksonville Jaguars' top receivers are returning next year, and they can't keep them all. They may need some cap space, and Kirk is making a decent buck there. Maybe you trade for him in the offseason, or maybe you wait for him to get cut. Deebo Samuel with San Francisco is another one. They're not going to keep all those guys. They're just not. He's making too much money, and they're paying Ayuk a bunch of money. Obviously, Deebo Samuel's production tailed off this year, so we'll see where that goes. Tyler Lockett with the Seahawks is definitely a cut possibility. They've got other guys there that they're paying money, and Jackson Smith and Jigba has emerged. Alan Lazard with the Jets, no thank you. And Kendrick Bourne with the Patriots. I'm not real interested in that either. Some trade candidates, Garrett Wilson with the Jets, certainly be interested in that. DK Metcalf with the Seahawks. I think you would entertain it, but I don't know if they cut him loose, if they cut Lockett. We'll see about that. Cooper Kupp, it's possible. They could move on from him. He's getting up in age and is still he's not the player he was, but he's still a valuable player. Then they also have Michael Pittman and Treylon Burks on this list, and, well, I don't think Pittman's getting cut. But a couple of the restricted free agents, Kevontae Turpin with the Dallas Cowboys, of course, a Pro Bowl return guy as well, and then Bo Melton with the Green Bay Packers. And he's an interesting guy. I've always liked him. I liked him coming out of the draft. Went a little later in the draft because he was more of a smaller guy, but he's had some flashes here and there in the NFL, and he's an interesting player, but he's a very specific type of gadgety type player that can work out of the slot for you. You can do some things like end arounds and things of that nature with him because he is lightning in a bottle with the ball in his hands. But that's kind of an early look at your free agent list. And even though Deontay Johnson was re-signed by the Baltimore Ravens, he'll still be a free agent at the end of the year here. So that's what you're looking at in terms of what's available on the open market. But that's going to do it for our show today. For my partner, Matt Williamson, for Justin Miller here on site, running the Justin Miller hotline and making sure Bob Labriola could come in and join us here today. For Tyler Vittmeyer, making sure our video gets out there onto YouTube, I'm Dale Lolley. We thank you for listening to this edition of The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network.
Steelers football happens here. The Pittsburgh Steelers Audio Network.